in essence work, we do a lot about recognizing essence, which in itself is quite a feature, right? So just recognizing what does it feel like when we feel red essence, white essence, green essence, and so on. But then we also notice that as when we are aware of the essences, it really affects us. It calms us down. It makes us much more resilient. It changes the kind of ideas we get for how to deal with different situations in our lives. We feel the white essence, and we're much more patient, and we can approach situations with patience. We feel the red essence, and we have a courage and a fearlessness. And the whole thing about addressing taboos become kind of a game. It becomes playful and fun, right? We are in touch with the black essence, and then we have that access to peace. So even though there's a lot of turmoil around us, we're in touch with the peace behind all of that. So when we're in touch with essence, it has fantastic, very practical implications in our lives. Of course, but as you know, we are not in touch with essence all the time. I don't know about you, but I sometimes forget it a little bit in certain situations. And so it's interesting to see, are there certain practices we can engage in that will help us facilitate this thing about remembering essence in more situations. And one of the situations that the type of situations where we really forget essence is when we are in conflict with ourselves. If we feel split or stuck. Have you noticed when you really feel that you want to go right, but you also want to go left? And then your mind starts spinning, right? Should I go right? Should I go left? What are the pros? What are the cons? And the part of you that want to go right starts attacking the part that wants to go left. And then the part that goes left says, well, if I let you decide, we'll never go left. So now I really want to go left, right? It's like this kind of thing. Of course, maybe it's not going right and left, but maybe it's something like, on the one hand, you want to be really polite. On the other hand, you don't want to and not offend anybody. On the other hand, you don't want to be taken advantage of, and you really want to say your opinion about things, right? And that can really pull you in different directions. So whenever we are in conflict, that creates a lot of turmoil, a lot of activity, a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotions, and that kind of drama makes it very easy for us to lose sight of essence, because essence is not so spectacular, right? It doesn't draw our attention so much. So therefore, these kind of situations are very interesting to look at. If we can resolve some of our inner conflicts or mediate between the kind of personality parts that tend to get in conflict, it's like we can calm down the inner turmoil a little bit, and that makes it so much easier for us to perceive essence in the first place and to remember essence. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the interesting thing is that this metaphor of seeing our psyche as consisting of different personality parts, and these personality parts in acting very much like individual people would act, it's a very good metaphor. It really works very well. And it also works in the way that we can take, if we have good practices for facilitating dialogue between groups of people, we can take those practices and use them to facilitate dialogue between personality parts. So this is what I want to talk to you about tonight. And I'm not going to go, the theory or the practices are, I've taken them from the work of a guy called William Isaacs, who has done a lot on dialogue. He's written a wonderful book that you've heard me talk about before, many of you, called The Dialogue and the Art of Thinking Together. And the practices that he presents in this book are a lot about, they've been tested in reality. He's been working in facilitating dialogue in post-apartheid South Africa, in between unions and coal mine workers in the UK, and like other groups of people where there's really a lot of conflict. So, and sometimes you really feel like your personality partners, your personality parts, they have the same level of conflict as in these famous examples from world history. So I'm not gonna go through the whole theory and stuff. I just want to give you some good practices collected from that. So one of the things Isaac's talk about is that he says, when you are having a dialogue, there are different types of what he calls conversational fields. And I'm gonna, and depending on what conversational field you are in, there are different things you can do to deepen the dialogue. There are different things you can do to facilitate the dialogue. You wouldn't do the same thing in different conversational fields. And so I'm going to mention 3 of these fields, what Isaacs is suggesting you do in them, and then I'm going to translate them into what we often do when we work with personality parts. And you will recognize a lot of these things because you've seen me do it over and over and over again. So the first field that Isaacs is talking about is the field of politeness. So the conversational field of politeness, you will have experienced it if you're in a new group. You know how everybody, they try to be very nice to each other. And if you're in a new group, most people will, if there's somebody that annoys you a little bit, you're just going to go like, oh, it's fine, you know, they probably don't mean it. And you're not going to address it, right? So, and if you have opinions that you know are a little controversial, you will couch them a bit. Maybe you won't even say them, because in the field of politeness, we are generally concerned with keeping a nice atmosphere. Do you know this kind of field? Yes. Energetically, the field of politeness feels calm, but it also feels a little bit flat and uninteresting. Does that make sense? If it feels like it's calm, it's nice, but there's not a lot of vitality or energy. It's kind of flat. Now, what Isaac says is to deepen the conversation from here, you need to encourage the voicing of the different taboos. You need to encourage, if there are conflicts, you need to encourage the controversial voices to come out and be spoken and be visible. Because if we keep sweeping things under the rug, nothing's going to happen. Maybe a little bit of resentment brewing in the corners, but that's it, right? So we need courage to speak out and see what happens. Now, in relationship to inner work, you've seen us do this over and over and over again. You know how there are certain emotions, certain thoughts, and we have them, but we like to pretend that we don't. So sometimes maybe you're in you describe a situation at work or something like that, and you want to be a very understanding person, and you want to be a very, a good spiritual person. And so you understand the other people's motive. And of course, you're not angry. You're just like, you really want to understand them or solve the thing. But actually, you're just pissed off, right? Actually, you're just really angry. But you try not to be, because you think, anger is not such a nice thing. And so when we translate that, can you see how that's equivalent to the field of politeness? So there, it's really nice to invite the part of you, the personality part that's just fuming, angry, and say, do you have anything to say, right? And we give it the microphone and it goes like, oh yeah, let me say, let me expand on the situation as I see it. And it can be super relieving to do that. Now, of course, in spiritual work, we have a lot of taboos. And so anger is a mind poison, right? We learned that in certain. I'm not going to point fingers, but it's a classical thing. The same thing we can say desires. They can be a little bit taboo, right? We're meant not to have any desires if we are good spiritual students, but of course we do, right? So it's like, if you try to be a good spiritual student, but you really just want to make a lot of money, right? It's like you really desire wealth, or you really have, I don't know, sexual desires or something like that, right? So we need to encourage those things and say, well, they're there. Let's give them a voice. Let's invite them into the room. It's going to be much more exciting. It's going to be much more alive when we do. So that is the, if we are in the field of politeness, so there are certain things that are not allowed to speak in us. It's very good to give them space to speak. And yeah, so we see the kind of conflicts that we have. Sometimes, yeah, maybe there's a situation and you think it's unfair, but you don't want to be petty, right? Well, give voice. And it's kind of nice there to say, well, a part of you thinks this is unfair, or a part of you is angry, because then you don't reduce yourself to just that. And then it's easier to give it room to speak. So does that make sense, how we do that a lot? Yeah. So sometimes when we feel like stuck, we can look inside and say, are there parts that we are not allowing to speak? And what happens if we allow them to speak? And you will have seen us doing this many times in the workshops. And often when we do, the moment that we allow something to speak, there's a relief, right? A certain energy, or maybe it's like, oh, finally I can breathe, or something like that. And you feel spaciousness. And then it's good to catch it and say, wow, the moment I stopped repressing this thing, I felt spaciousness. This is part of the realm of essence. Or maybe if we allow desire to speak, we feel joy. When we finally give ourselves permission to speak all our unspoken wishes and desires, it starts feeling like a bubbling in the heart, and we just love it. And that's yellow essence. The same thing with the anger. When we finally allow the anger, if we haven't allowed it, we feel it like this rush of energy going through us. This is red essence. So many times when for every essence, there's a doorway, which is fundamentally about giving voice to something we don't normally give voice to. For the green, it would be vulnerability and sadness, for example. So this is the field of politeness. So I'm curious, I'm just going to pause here. Any questions so far, or comments? Or the next field, as you can almost guess, is where the conflicting opinions are out, right? So sometimes when the conflicting opinions are out, if you look almost at any in the news today, you see it all the time. You have the people who are like taking the vaccine, and the people who are not taking the vaccine. You have the Brexiteers and the Remainers. You have the Trumpians and the Democrats. You have you see these polarized conversations all the time, and you see how these polarized conversations play out. And you see, this is not a field of politeness, right? That would be wrong to call it a field of politeness. It's a field of warfare. Isaacs called it the field of breakdown. So this is where people are, I know what is right, and the people who think something else are wrong. and my only job is to convince them that they are right, or that I'm right and that they're wrong, and everything they say is stupid, and everything I say is clearly correct. And if they don't see that I'm right, it's because they are willfully being stupid, or maybe they're ignorant, or maybe they're something else, but it's not positive, right? So you recognize this kind of dialogue. Yeah. So, and you have it in families, and you have it at societal level, and you can feel this is a very high energy field. It is definitely not calm. It's very tense, and it's very energetic. And it is that kind of entrenchment warfare. So the combination of high energy and tension, that is how you recognize it. And sometimes we have these like our inner parts are having that kind of dialogue. So we see value in both sides. Like, for example, maybe one part of us really want to be successful, and they would say live our full potential or something like that, right? So really do all we can and achieve all we can. And then another part of us is like, well, no, I want to stop and smell the roses. I want to relax. I want to have a nice life. I want to enjoy myself. I don't want to work 24/7. Can anybody recognize that kind of conflict? Okay, a few. Yes. So and you see how you often ping pong. One day you are identified with one part, and you are trying to work with your workaholism, and the next day you're identified with the other one, and you're trying to work with your procrastination, right? You're trying to overcome your procrastination. And so can you see how it's the same thing when you are in one part? You are trying to eradicate, or the nice version is work with, which is often a word, another way of saying getting rid of. So overcome, work with, eradicate, or at least hide or downplay or repress certain sides of you, but you ping pong. So yeah, so this is the kind of internal field. Now, Isaac's advice here is very different. Here, it's not about speaking the taboos. The taboos are out in the open. The conflicts are out in the open. They're very visible. They're very palpable. What we need here is to listen for what is valid in the opposite side. Which, incidentally, so this is what is really needed, right? So the coal mine owners have to listen for what the union people are saying that is actually valid, that they can say, well, that's fair. And the union people have to look at the evil empire, and the owners of the coal mines, and say, okay, so what are you saying that's actually valid? So we have to listen with openness, respect for the truth in what the other one is saying. We have to listen for the positive intentions behind what the others are saying. One thing that can be very good practical tool is to say, well, often when people are saying something, they're proposing a method. But then you have to listen and say, what's their ultimate goal? So when your partner comes to you and tells you everything that's wrong with you, right? That's their method. And you might find that a little bit tedious because you don't like your partner to tell you everything that's wrong with you. But that is not their goal. Their goal is that, they have something, a strategy like, first I tell them everything that's wrong with them, and then they acknowledge it and they change everything. And now we can have a good connection, right? Now, of course, when you look at this, you say, well, I doubt that a good connection will come out of telling somebody everything that's wrong with them. But when you see that that's the ultimate goal, you say, well, I can subscribe to the goal. I also want a good connection, but maybe we can find a different method. So this is the kind of listening that we have to do. Now, in inner work, what we often do, a method that I love, is to say, if a personality part is doing something that you very much disagree with, you can say to it, what if I imagine that we go along with what you want to do, right? So maybe there's a part of you that is, maybe you have a very strong self-criticism. So you are telling yourself that you are very stupid and that nobody could, really want to hang out with you because you're too dumb, something like that. Or maybe you criticize yourself and say you are extremely unkind and selfish, right? So everything you do is selfish and unkind and stuff like that. Okay, so you are very critical of yourself. Now, then a good thing to do is to say, okay, let's play along with this. If you really were to criticize yourself and convince yourself that you were completely terrible person, then what? What's the end game here? This is not the end game. What's the end game? So if you convince yourself that you are very unkind, then you will have to do something about it, and you will have to be extremely kind. And if you are extremely kind to everybody around you except yourself, then what? Then everybody's gonna really like you and want to hang out with you. And then everybody's going to appreciate you. And then you're going to feel loved and appreciated. And you go, that's what you're on about. That's what you want to get to, right? Can you see, you don't get stuck in the method of your personality part. You take it by the hand and you allow it to show you its end goal. So maybe another example would be if you flare up, you have a tendency to get very angry at other people, right? You snap and you yell at other people, and you think that's a problem. Then it can be very good to say, okay, I have a personality part that likes to shout at other people. And again, you interview it and you say, well, what do you want to do? And if you just, how much do you want to shout at other people? And it says, I want to shout at other people until they admit their mistakes or until they back off. Let's say I want to shout at other people until they back off. What will you feel when they back off? I will finally feel peace. I will feel I have my space. I will feel peace, or I will feel safe, or I will feel something else. And you go like, well, feeling peace and feeling safe, I get that. That's valid. Does that make sense? How you can listen to personality parts and say, well, I don't get hung up on the immediacy of what this personality part is doing. I listen for what is valid. And often what is valid is its ultimate goal. So that's another thing. Now, yes, I'll just round this off and then we'll do questions. So when you do it, when you have polarized parts and you start interviewing them one at a time and seeing what's valid about them, it's like you de-radicalize the parts. Because often what happens if one part is really, one is the workaholic and one is the relaxing part, let's say that. The more the workaholic is pushing you to work, the more the part that wants to relax says, well, now we need a week off, now we need a month off, now we need a year off, right? It gets more and more radical. The more the one that wants to relax says, I want to relax for a whole year, the more the workaholic says, are you kidding me? I'm losing a whole year. Now I have to work twice as hard, right? Can you see how they radicalize each other? When you listen for what is valid in each of these, they start getting de-radicalized and they start perceiving what is valid in each other, and you move together, you become more whole. And you start understanding that each personality part has a piece of the puzzle. And when you listen to all of them, you get that much more. So what is needed here is to disidentify from positions and listen for what is valid in every single position instead of being identified with a single position. Does that make sense? Cool. So the third and final space that I want to talk about, call it the field of inquiry. So this is where you know all the positions inside are voicing, they are speaking their minds, and you're listening to it. You're not attached or identified with a single position. You move around, you listen to all the different positions, you inquire. Can you see how this is very connected to what we call inquiry, where the way we often speak about inquiry is we pose a question and then we allow whatever comes to come. So it's open, and we listen to all of it. So this is very nice. It's a very nice and interesting field. You get a lot of insights. When you often you will see that the conflicts will simply dissolve here because you understand that there are no conflicts. That you're working, the different parts are working towards the same goal, can be very nice. The field of inquiry feels calm but energized, electrifying, energized. You often feel excited, right? This is where revelations are coming. One insight after another is coming. So that's a very nice field. Now, one of the things that can happen in the inquiry, because it's not quite enough. Yeah, we have the voicing, we got the listening, now we're in the field of inquiry. How many people have experienced that they are inquiring in relation to a particular situation? You see a ton of things. You see what emotions are there, you see what thoughts are there, you see how the thoughts are generating the emotions. You see how you are looking at a situation through filters that are relating to your childhood home, your family environment. You understand, the reason I see this situation like that is because it reminds me of this situation, and in that situation this was correct. And you have all these insights, and at some point you go like, but it doesn't seem to do anything. I see a lot of things. I have inquired into this forever. I feel I understand all the ins and outs of it, and yet there seems to be something missing. How many have experienced this? Like perpetual inquiry. Yes, okay, I see a couple of hands. Now, what Isaac suggests in this situation, is it a question? I'll just say a little and then we take the questions. So what Isaacs are saying in this situation is that it can be really good to take a step back and look at the whole picture. So take a step back and look at the whole picture. When he is working with groups of people, he would say something like, if this group could speak with one voice, what would it say? When we work internally, one of the things that I really like to do in this is kind of saying like, and this is also a tool or a practice I have gotten from Isaacs, is to say, what is the pattern that's generating all the different personality parts? So when you see the workaholic and the relaxation, you go like, what is the pattern that's creating both of those parts? What is the underlying unifying pattern that is creating the whole system of parts that you have mapped out through your inquiry? So for example, you can say, if you let's say you have a very cynical part, And then you have a part that's really tired of the cynical part, and like a more optimistic part. And they're really far apart, right? One is saying like, well, you know, if I do this work, I should be enlightened next week, right? That's wonderful. And another part goes like, yeah, you've been doing this for 20 years and nothing has changed, right? Look at this problem and this problem and this problem. It's been with you for 20 years. Why do you even bother, right? You have that kind of split. And then you can sometimes say, okay, so what's the underlying pattern here? And the underlying pattern might be something like, you're trying to avoid disappointment in the future by disappointing yourself now, right? That is a very common pattern when it comes to cynicism. Or maybe, and when you look at the Enneagram, for each of the types in the Enneagram, you can see each type as kind of a flawed logic that generate a whole personality structure. For the 6, for example, famously, they want to be safe by having their radar always tuned to every possible and thinkable and imaginable danger. And of course, that's flawed. You're never going to feel safe if you're always focused on danger. Now, but that idea, that core idea that you can be safe by noticing every possible danger and then taking preempting it, that will create the paranoia, it will create the distrust of authorities, it will create the brashness, it will create the fearfulness, it will create the whole personality structure. So in inquiry, sometimes when you feel, well, I've seen all the parts, I know how everybody relates to everybody, sometimes it's good to take a step back and say, what is the pattern that's creating this, all of this that I see before me? And sometimes summing up the whole thing in a sentence, then it's like, then you have landed a new overall understanding. Does that make sense? Cool. So, are you ready for an inquiry? Just say yes, because we're going to do it anyway. So, I'd like you to start by picking a situation that is where you feel stuck or split. So pick a situation where you feel stuck or split. So the inquiry is, look at this situation where you feel stuck or split, and then notice like what kind of inner atmosphere are you feeling? Is it more like trying to make every part get along with each other, the field of politeness? Is it like open war? Do you feel that your inner parts are really in conflict with each other and trying to win over each other? Or are you in a place where you say, this is like, I'm looking at all these things, but it seems like the inquiry is going on forever? If it's the field of politeness, then ask yourself, which voice is missing from the conversation? And bring that in and just that, and see what happens. If it's the war, then let your inquiry question be, what is valid in each of the different personality parts? And just that, and see what happens as you acknowledge what is valid in every single position. And if it is a perpetual inquiry where you feel you've seen everything there is to see, ask yourself the question, what is the underlying question that all of these parts are struggling with? What's the pattern that generates this whole debate?